The crystal walls of the Galaxy Council chamber stretched high above Ambassador Hyunwoo Park as he walked toward the center platform. His black diplomatic uniform looked plain next to the bright colors and strange shapes of the alien beings around him. 847 different species filled the massive room, and all their eyes were on him. Hyunwoo had practiced this moment for months during the long journey from Earth. His hands were steady, but his heart beat fast. This was humanity's first time speaking to the Galaxy Council. Everything depended on what happened in the next few minutes. The chamber fell quiet as he reached the speaking platform. High above him sat High Arbiter Veltar of the Hegemony. The alien looked like a giant spider made of silver metal, with glowing red eyes that stared down at him. Around the room, thousands of other aliens watched and waited. Honored members of the Galaxy Council, Hyunwoo began, his voice clear and strong. I am Ambassador Hyunwoo Park, speaking for the human race of Earth. I come before you today with an urgent warning. A low sound filled the room as many aliens made noises that might have been laughter. Some clicked their claws or flashed bright lights from their skin. They had heard about humans, the new species that had just learned to travel between stars. Most aliens in the room had been traveling space for thousands of years. Hyunwoo ignored the sounds and continued. 3 months ago, our exploration ship Endeavor made contact with beings called the Void Hunters. Commander Jinna Kim and her crew barely escaped with their lives. What they discovered threatens not just humanity, but all life in this galaxy. He touched a device on his wrist and a large image appeared in the air above him. It showed a star system with planets, moons, and space stations. Then the image changed. The planets were gone. The star was dim and dying. Empty space remained where a civilization once lived. This was the Kalari system, Hyunwoo said, home to 12 billion beings. The Void Hunters came there 6 months ago. Now there is nothing left but dead space. The Void Hunters ate everything. The planets, the moons, even parts of the star itself. More images appeared. System after system, all empty, all dead. The room became quieter as some aliens recognized places they had visited or traded with. The Void Hunters are not like other species, Hyunwoo continued. They do not want territory or resources they can trade. They consume entire star systems and move on. They have been doing this for millions of years, staying in the dark spaces between galaxies where no one can find them. High Arbiter Veltar leaned forward. When he spoke, his voice sounded like metal grinding against stone. Young human, we know of the Void Hunters. They are an old problem. Sometimes they come, sometimes they leave. The galaxy is large. There is room for all. No, Hyunwoo said firmly. You do not understand. Commander Kim's ship recorded their communications. They are not random in their attacks. They choose systems based on population and resources. They are coming to the Sol system next. They are coming for Earth. A sound like thunder filled the chamber as hundreds of aliens made their version of laughter. Some banged tentacles against their seats. Others flashed bright colors that hurt to look at. And what? Called out a voice from the crowd. Do you want us to do about it, little human? Hyunwoo took a deep breath. This was the moment everything depended on. I am not here to ask for your help. I am here to give you a warning about what will happen after they attack Earth. The laughter grew louder, but Hyunwoo raised his voice over it. When the Void Hunters destroy our world and kill our people, we will not simply die quietly. Those of us who survive will remember. We will learn. We will adapt. And we will hunt them down no matter how long it takes or how far we have to go. The room became quieter again. Some aliens stopped laughing. Humans do not forgive, Hyunwoo said, his voice carrying to every corner of the chamber. We do not forget. When someone hurts us, we remember that pain forever. We pass that memory to our children, and they pass it to their children. We will pursue the Void Hunters to the edge of the universe if we have to. We will follow them between galaxies. We will hunt them through time itself if necessary. High Arbiter Veltar made a sound that might have been amusement. Brave words from a species that has not even built cities on their own moon. You think you can threaten beings who have devoured entire galaxies? I am not making a threat, Hyunwoo replied calmly. I am telling you what will happen. It is not anger speaking, it is simple fact. Humans never stop hunting something once we decide it needs to die. An alien that looked like a floating jellyfish called out from the upper levels. What makes you think any of you will survive their attack? Some will survive, Hyunwoo said with certainty. Humans are hard to kill completely. We spread out, we hide. We run when we have to. But we always remember who hurt us. And someday we always come back. More laughter filled the room, but it sounded less certain now. "The Void Hunters are not like other enemies," continued another alien voice. "They are older than most civilizations in this galaxy. Their technology is beyond anything you can imagine. Then we will learn their technology," Hyunwoo said simply. "We will steal it. We will improve it. We will turn it against them. Humans are very good at learning from our enemies." High Arbiter Veltar stood up, his metal legs clicking against the floor. "This warning is noted and recorded, Ambassador Park. The Galaxy Council acknowledges that the human species faces a threat from the Void Hunters. However, the Council cannot commit resources to defend every species that faces danger. The galaxy is vast and threats are many." "I understand," Hyunwoo said. "I did not expect you to help us. I only wanted you to understand what would happen next." "And what exactly will happen next?" asked the High Arbiter. Hyunwoo looked around the room, meeting the eyes of as many aliens as he could. "When Earth falls, the survivors will disappear into space. You will forget about us. You will think the human problem is solved. But we will be out there learning and growing stronger. We will become something new. Something you have never seen before." He paused, letting his words sink in. "One day, decades or centuries from now, you will hear stories. Stories of Void Hunter ships found empty and drifting. Stories of their outposts attacked by unknown forces. Stories of their leaders disappearing in the night. And when those stories reach your ears, remember this moment. Remember that a human stood in this chamber and told you exactly what would happen." The chamber was completely quiet now. "The Void Hunters think they are the ultimate predators," Hyunwoo said, his voice soft but clear. "They are about to learn that they are wrong. Humans are not prey. We are not victims. We are the species that turns predators into the hunted." He bowed formally to the High Arbiter and began walking toward the exit. As he reached the door, Veltar called out, "Ambassador Park, what if you are wrong? What if no humans survive?" Hyunwoo turned back one last time. "Then you will have nothing to worry about. But if even one human child escapes on one small ship, the Void Hunters are doomed. We never forget our dead High Arbiter. Never." The door closed behind him, leaving the Galaxy Council in unusual silence. None of them believed the humans' warning would come true. After all, what could one primitive species do against beings who had terrorized the galaxy for millions of years? They would learn the answer soon enough. The first sign that the Void Hunters had arrived was the silence. All communications from Mars stopped at exactly 1432 Earth Standard Time. No distress signals, no emergency broadcasts, no final messages. Just silence where 12 million human voices had been moments before. Captain So-Young Lee stood on the bridge of the battleship Defiant, watching the tactical display with growing horror. The red dots representing Mars had simply vanished from the screen. In their place was empty space and the massive shapes of ships that defied every law of physics humanity understood. "How big are they?" she asked her sensor officer, Lieutenant Baeho Kim. "The largest one is, Captain, it's the size of Earth's moon. The smaller ones are still bigger than our largest cities." His voice shook as he spoke. "I'm reading over 300 vessels in total." So-Young had seen the intelligence reports. She knew the Void Hunters were dangerous, but seeing them on screen was different. These were not ships in any sense humans understood. They looked alive, like enormous sea creatures, made of metal and bone and something else that hurt to look at. Directly, signal from Jupiter. "Command," called Communications Officer Dalmi Shin. "Admiral Chen reports all outer mining stations are under attack. They're requesting immediate evacuation support." "How long do we have?" So-Young asked. "Unknown, Captain. The attacking ships are... They're not using weapons we recognize. They seem to be eating the stations rather than destroying them." So-Young closed her eyes for a moment. Earth's defense plan had been built around the idea that they would face normal enemies using normal weapons. Ships that shot missiles or energy beams. Ships that could be fought with tactics humans understood. The reality was far worse. "All ships, this is Captain Lee," she broadcast on the fleet channel. "Execute Plan Omega. All civilian vessels are to begin immediate evacuation procedures. Military vessels will buy them time." The next 6 hours were chaos. Civilian ships packed with refugees fled toward the outer system, while Earth's defense fleet formed battle lines between them and the approaching Void Hunters. It was the largest space battle in human history, and everyone knew they were going to lose. The Void Hunter ships moved wrong. They bent space around themselves, appearing in one place and then suddenly being somewhere else without crossing the distance between. Their weapons were even stranger. Instead of destroying human ships, they seemed to drain them. Metal hulls aged decades in seconds. Electronic systems simply stopped working. Crews died not from explosions or fire, but from something that made their bodies forget how to live. Commander Jae-sung Park led the fighter squadrons in desperate attacks against the smaller Void Hunter vessels. His pilots were the best Earth had ever trained, flying the most advanced fighters human technology could build. It did not matter. The enemy ships absorbed their missiles like sponges soaking up water. Energy weapons had no effect at all. "They're not even trying to dodge," Park reported over the radio. "It's like they don't consider us a threat." He was right. The Void Hunters moved through the human battle lines like sharks swimming through a school of fish. They took what they wanted and ignored the rest. Sometimes a human weapon would seem to damage one of their smaller ships, but even then, the wound would heal in minutes. Admiral Dong-hyun Choi commanded the defense from the orbital station above Earth. He was humanity's finest military mind, a man who had studied every great battle in human history. None of that knowledge helped him now. "Sir," reported his aide, "we've lost contact with all ships beyond the Jupiter line. The outer system is gone." Dong-hyun stared at the tactical display. Red enemy markers were everywhere. Blue friendly markers were disappearing one by one. In 8 hours of fighting, humanity's greatest fleet had been reduced to a handful of ships limping toward Earth. "Signal all remaining vessels," he ordered. "Fall back to Earth orbit. Make them come through us to reach the planet." It was a brave gesture, but ultimately meaningless. The Void Hunters had not even noticed the human resistance. They moved toward Earth like a tide that could not be stopped. The first Void Hunter ship to reach Earth orbit was smaller than the others, only the size of a city instead of a moon. It positioned itself above the Pacific Ocean and began to do something that made no sense to human observers. It's eating the water," stammered Lieutenant Yuna Song from the sensor station. "The ocean levels are dropping. Where's all that water going?" The answer became clear as more ships arrived. They were not just taking the water, they were consuming everything. The atmosphere, the land, even the energy from Earth's magnetic field. The planet was being devoured from every direction at once. Cities died not from bombardment but from having the very ground beneath them consumed. The air became too thin to breathe as the Void Hunters absorbed the atmosphere. Oceans boiled away into nothing. It was not war. It was feeding time. Captain So-Young Lee found herself commanding one of the last human ships still fighting. The Defiant had lost most of its weapons and half its crew, but it still flew. Around Earth's dying moon, a few dozen other ships joined her in humanity's final battle. "This is Captain Lee to all remaining vessels," she broadcast. "We cannot win this fight, but we can make sure humanity remembers what happened here. All ships are to record everything. Document their technology, their tactics, their weaknesses if they have any. Someone has to survive to carry this knowledge forward." The Void Hunters had noticed the remaining human ships by now, but only as a minor annoyance. A few of their smaller vessels moved to deal with the problem. The humans fought with desperate courage, but courage was not enough. One by one, the last defenders fell. The battleship Thunder died when its hull simply crumbled to dust. The cruiser. Lightning vanished when something pulled it into a space that did not exist. The destroyer Hope managed to ram one of the smaller Void Hunter ships, but the enemy vessel healed the damage in minutes while Hope became a cloud of scattered atoms. So-Young watched her fleet die around her. When the Defiant's turn came, she was ready. A Void Hunter ship the size of a small moon moved toward them, weapons that bent reality itself charging to fire. "All crew to escape pods," she ordered. "This is not the end. This is just the beginning." The escape pods launched in all directions as the Defiant died. Most were caught by the Void Hunters and consumed along with their crews. But some escaped. A precious few made it to the civilian evacuation ships fleeing toward the outer darkness. Admiral Dong-hyun Choi survived the destruction of Earth by being on one of those evacuation ships. He watched through a viewport as his homeworld was consumed completely. The Void Hunters did not leave ruins or wreckage. They left nothing at all. Just empty space where a planet had once supported 12 billion human lives. The survivors numbered less than 1 million. They had no worlds, no bases, no factories. Just a few hundred ships fleeing into the dark between stars, carrying the last remnants of human civilization. As the Void Hunter fleet moved on to digest their meal and choose their next target, Dong-hyun gathered the surviving ship captains for an emergency meeting. The holographic conference showed faces marked by grief and shock, but also something else, something harder and more dangerous. Earth is gone, he told them simply. Our homes are gone. Our families are gone. But we are not gone. And as long as one human still lives, this is not over. Captain So-Young Lee, now commanding a damaged destroyer with barely 50 crew members, spoke for many when she said, "What can we do? We have no weapons that can hurt them, no technology that can match them. They are everything we feared and worse." "Then we learn," Dong-hyun replied. "We study them. We follow them. We discover their secrets. We become what we need to become to destroy them." "That could take centuries," said Commander Minho Park from the refugee ship New Hope. "Then it takes centuries," Dong-hyun said without hesitation. "Time means nothing now. We have no homes to return to, no lives to live except this one purpose. We will follow the Void Hunters wherever they go. We will learn everything about them. And someday, somehow, we will make them pay for what they did to Earth." The scattered human fleet disappeared into deep space, carrying with them the records of Earth's final battle and the genetic material needed to rebuild their species. Behind them, the Sol system stood empty except for a slowly dying star. In the Galaxy Council chambers, High Arbiter Veltar received the report of Earth's destruction with little interest. Another species had fallen to the Void Hunters. It happened sometimes. The galaxy would continue as it always had. None of them gave any thought to the human survivors fleeing into the darkness. After all, what could such a primitive species do? They had been crushed in a matter of hours by enemies they could not even hurt. The Council would not think about humans again for a very long time. But the humans would be thinking about them, and learning, and preparing for the day when they would return to collect what was owed. 50 years had passed since Earth died, and the Galaxy Council had forgotten about humans entirely. In the great chambers of Nexus Prime, representatives of 800 species conducted their business as they always had. Trade agreements were signed, territorial disputes were settled, and the slow march of galactic politics continued. High Arbiter Veltar, now ancient even by his species' standards, rarely thought about the small diplomatic warning a human ambassador had given so long ago. When he did remember, it was usually with something resembling amusement. The primitive species had been wiped out in a single day, just as everyone expected, but in the dark spaces between stars, something was growing. Dr. Mi-Young-han stood in the research lab of the human fleet ship Retribution, examining her latest prize. On the examination table lay pieces of Void Hunter technology, salvaged from a wreck her people had found drifting in an abandoned system. She was 73 years old now, but her mind was as sharp as ever. "The power source is completely unlike anything we've seen before," she told her assistant, Dr. Kyung-min Yoon. "It doesn't use fusion or antimatter. It actually feeds on the structure of space itself. Can we copy it?" Kyung-min asked. "Not yet," Mi-Young replied. "But we're getting closer. Each wreck we find teaches us more. Eventually, we'll understand how they work." The human survivors had spent 5 decades learning to become something new. They no longer built cities or farmed crops. Every resource, every moment of their lives was focused on one goal: understanding their enemy. The scattered human fleets had grown from the original million survivors to nearly 10 million people, but they remained hidden in the empty spaces between star systems. Their ships were designed to be invisible, using technology reverse-engineered from alien wrecks and improved with human ingenuity. Fleet Commander Jamin Kang reviewed the latest intelligence reports in his quarters aboard the command ship Vengeance. At 45, he had never seen Earth except in historical recordings. He had been born in space, raised in space, and trained for war in space. Like all humans born after the harvest, he knew only one purpose. "The Void Hunters have been active in the Spiral Arm," reported Intelligence Officer Hee-Jin Kim. 3 systems consumed in the last 6 months. We've been tracking their main fleet for 2 years now." "What do we know about their next target?" Jae-min asked. "The Batari system. 12 inhabited worlds, about 8 billion people. They'll arrive there in approximately 40 standard days." Jae-min nodded. The Batari were a peaceful species, known for their skill in growing crops that could feed half the galaxy. They would die just like everyone else who got in the Void Hunter's way. "Are our strike teams ready?" he asked. "Strike? Team Alpha has been in position for 3 weeks," Yejin replied. "Strike Team Beta will arrive tomorrow. Both teams report that the target is isolated from the main fleet, just as we planned." This would be humanity's first direct attack on a Void Hunter vessel. For 50 years, they had studied from a distance, learned from wrecks, and prepared for this moment. Now it was time to see if all their preparation had been enough. The target was a Void Hunter scout ship, smaller than their main battle vessels, but still the size of a human city. It traveled alone, surveying star systems and reporting back to the main fleet. Most species would never have dared to attack even a scout, but humans were no longer like most species. Captain Sun Hee Park commanded Strike Team Alpha from the stealth ship Nightfall. Her 12-person crew had trained for this mission for 10 years. Every one of them had been born after Earth's destruction, raised on stories of what the Void Hunters had done to their ancestral home. "Target acquired," reported Weapons Officer Dal Su Choi. "Range, 50,000 kilometers, and closing." Also, "Teams, this is Alpha Leader," Sun Hee broadcast on the encrypted channel. "Remember the plan. We get one chance at this. Make it count." The attack began with silence. Human stealth technology, improved far beyond anything their species had possessed during Earth's defense, allowed them to approach undetected. The Void. Hunter scout ship drifted through space, unaware that death was closing in. 24 human ships struck at once. They had learned from studying Void Hunter technology that the aliens' ships were strongest when they had time to adapt to threats. The key was to hit them with everything at once, faster than their systems could adjust. Weapons that had taken decades to develop tore into the scout ship's hull. Humans had learned to fight Void Hunters using the aliens' own principles against them. Energy weapons that fed on the target's own power systems. Missiles that existed in multiple dimensions at once. Viruses designed to attack the living computers that controlled Void Hunter vessels. For 30 seconds, it looked like the attack might succeed. The scout ship shuddered under the assault, its hull cracking and bleeding strange fluids into space. Explosions rippled across its surface as human weapons found their targets. Then the Void Hunter ship began to fight back. Reality bent around the alien vessel as it activated weapons beyond human understanding. Strike Team Beta's flagship simply ceased to exist, not destroyed but erased from the universe entirely. 2 more human ships aged thousands of years in seconds, their hulls crumbling to cosmic dust. But the humans had learned something important. Void Hunters could be hurt. "All ships, disengage and scatter," Sun Hee ordered, as her own vessel took damage from weapons that attacked the crew's minds directly. Mission accomplished. Repeat. Mission accomplished. The surviving human ships vanished back into the darkness, leaving the wounded Void Hunter scout alone. It was still alive, still functional, but it bore scars that would never fully heal. More importantly, its databanks now contained records of the attack. When the scout ship rejoined the main Void Hunter fleet, those records were shared among the collective consciousness that controlled their species. For the first time in millions of years, the Void Hunters had encountered prey that could fight back effectively. The attack had cost humanity 8 ships and over 2,000 lives, but the intelligence gained was priceless. Dr. Mi Young Han spent weeks analyzing the sensor records, mapping the alien ship's weaknesses and defensive systems. "They're not invincible," she told Fleet Commander Jamin during their next strategy meeting. "They're incredibly advanced, yes, but they have limits. Their ships can be damaged, their weapons can be overwhelmed, and most importantly, they can be surprised." "What do you recommend for our next move?" Jamin asked. "We hit them again," Mi Young replied without hesitation. "Harder this time. We've learned their basic defensive patterns. Now we need to learn how they adapt to threats." The second attack came 6 months later, targeting a Void Hunter supply convoy moving between star systems. This time, the humans used different tactics, different weapons, different approaches. They wanted to see how the aliens would respond to completely new threats. The result was another costly victory. The humans lost more ships, but they managed to completely destroy two smaller Void Hunter vessels and capture intact samples of their technology. More importantly, they proved that Void Hunter ships could be killed if hit with sufficient force. News of the mysterious attack spread slowly through the galaxy. At first, most species dismissed the reports as rumors or exaggerations. Void Hunter ships didn't get attacked. Void Hunter ships didn't get damaged. It was impossible, but the reports kept coming. Void Hunter patrols found drifting in space, their crews dead and their data stolen. Void Hunter outposts that went silent for no apparent reason. And always, the same message burned into the hulls of the damaged ships. Remember Earth. In the Galaxy Council chambers, High Arbiter Veltar received his first report about the attacks with confusion rather than alarm. The aide who briefed him was young, a member of a species that had joined the Council only recently. "You're certain these reports are accurate?" Veltar asked. "Yes, High Arbiter," the aide replied. "We've confirmed at least 6 separate incidents over the past year. Someone or something is actively hunting Void Hunter vessels. Who would be foolish enough to attack them?" "Unknown, sir. The attackers leave no survivors and no clear evidence of their identity. The only clue is that message, 'Remember Earth.'" Veltar felt something he had not experienced in centuries. A cold chill of memory. Earth, the human homeworld, the species that had stood before the Council 50 years ago and made an impossible threat. "Impossible," he said aloud. "The humans were extinct. We confirmed it ourselves." "Perhaps another species adopted their name," the aide suggested. "Or perhaps some humans did survive after all." Veltar stared at the report for a long moment. If humans had somehow survived the destruction of their world, if they had spent 5 decades preparing for war against the galaxy's ultimate predators. "Increase monitoring of all Void Hunter activity," he ordered. "I want detailed reports on every attack, every unusual incident, every anomaly, and search our records for any information about human survivors from the Earth incident." "Yes, High Arbiter." As his aide left, Veltar found himself remembering the human ambassador's words from so long ago. "We will pursue them to the edge of the universe if necessary. We will follow them between galaxies. We will hunt them through time itself if necessary." At the time, it had seemed like the desperate boasting of a doomed species. The impossible happened on a Tuesday. For the first time in recorded galactic history, a Void Hunter fleet retreated from a battle. The news spread through the galaxy's communication networks like wildfire, carried by stunned witnesses who could barely believe what they had seen. General Eugene Park stood on the command deck of the massive human dreadnought Eternal Wrath, watching the Void Hunter ships flee through her viewscreen. She was the great-granddaughter of the ambassador who had warned the Galaxy Council 130 years ago, and she had spent her entire life preparing for this moment. "All ships, maintain pursuit formation," she ordered. "Do not let them escape. We've been hunting this fleet for 40 years. Today we finish what our ancestors started." The battle had been raging for 6 days across the Calori system, where 8 billion aliens had called home until the Void Hunters arrived to feed. But this time, the predators had found more than helpless prey waiting for them. Humanity had evolved in the 130 years since Earth's destruction. The million survivors had grown to over 50 million, spread across hundreds of ships that moved like ghosts through the dark spaces between stars. They no longer resembled the peaceful species that had once sought diplomacy with the Galaxy Council. Every human child was born into a military structure. Every human adult served the war effort. Their entire civilization had become a single weapon pointed at the hearts of their enemies. They built no cities, claimed no worlds, created no art except the art of death. They were humanity distilled to its most essential element, the refusal to forgive. "General," reported Intelligence Officer Minwoo Song, "we're receiving a transmission from Void Hunter Command Ship Omega. They're trying to communicate." Yu Jin smiled coldly. In 40 years of hunting this particular fleet, she had never heard the Void Hunters try to speak to anyone. They simply came, consumed, and moved on. The fact that they wanted to talk now meant they were afraid. "Put it through," she ordered. The viewscreen flickered and an image appeared that would have driven most species insane to look upon. The Void Hunter commander was ancient beyond measure. a writhing mass of organic technology and living nightmare that had consumed 1,000 worlds. When it spoke, reality itself seemed to bend around its words. "What are you?" the creature asked, its voice like the sound of dying stars. "We are what you made us," Eugen replied calmly. "We are the children of Earth. We are the species you taught to hunt." Impossible. Earth. Consumed. Species. Extinct. You consumed our world. You killed our people, but you made one mistake. Eugen stepped closer to the screen. You let some of us live, and humans never forget. The Void Hunter commander's form shifted and writhed as it processed this information. "You cannot hurt us. We are eternal. We are beyond your comprehension, are we?" Eugen gestured to her tactical officer. "Show them what we've learned." The human fleet's formation changed with mechanical precision. Ships that had appeared to be destroyers and cruisers suddenly revealed their true nature as massive weapons platforms. Technology that had taken over a century to develop powered up in perfect synchronization. "We've been studying you for 130 years, Eugen explained as her ships charged their weapons. "We know how your ships heal themselves. We know how your weapons bend reality. We know where your weak points are, and we know how to kill you." The first volley from the human fleet was like nothing the galaxy had ever seen before. Weapons that existed in multiple dimensions struck Void Hunter ships from angles that should not have been possible. Energy beams that fed on their target's own power systems drained the aliens' defenses. Missiles carrying payloads of controlled space-time distortions tore holes in reality itself. 3 of the smaller Void Hunter ships died immediately, their hulls collapsing into tiny points of infinite density. A 4th ship aged backwards through time until it became the raw materials it had been built from billions of years ago. But the humans were not finished. "Deploy the harvesters," Eugen ordered. From the bellies of the human ships came their most terrible weapons, machines built using Void Hunter technology, but improved with human ingenuity. The harvesters were designed for one purpose: to do to Void Hunters what Void Hunters did to everyone else. The machines swarmed over the enemy fleet like a plague, consuming the alien ships from the inside out. But instead of simply destroying them, the harvesters absorbed the Void Hunters' knowledge, their technology, their very essence. Everything the aliens had learned in millions of years of cosmic predation was being turned against them. "Status report," Eugen called out. 8 enemy ships destroyed, reported Tactical Officer Sung-Ho Kim. 4 more heavily damaged and unable to maneuver. The remaining 12 ships are attempting to flee the system. "Let them go," Eugen ordered, surprising her crew. "General?" asked her second-in-command, Colonel Ji-Hoon Lee. "We want some of them to escape," Eugen explained. "We want them to spread the word to their entire species. We want every Void Hunter in the galaxy to know that the humans are coming." As the surviving Void Hunter ships fled into hyperspace, Eugen opened a communication channel to the Galaxy Council. It was time for humanity's second diplomatic mission. High Arbiter Veltar was in the middle of reviewing trade agreements when the emergency session was called. He had been expecting something like this for months as reports of Void Hunter defeats spread across the galaxy. Still, seeing a human face on the Council's communication screen after so many years was shocking. "Honored members of the Galaxy Council," the human said, "I am Admiral Haewon Song, representing the surviving human fleets. I come before you today not to ask for help but to deliver a gift." She gestured to something off-screen, and 2 humans in combat armor dragged something into view. The assembled aliens gasped in horror and amazement. It was the severed head of a Void Hunter Apex commander, a being that most species believed to be immortal. 130 years ago, my ancestors stood in this chamber and warned you what would happen if the Void Hunters attacked Earth. Haewon continued. You laughed at his warning. The Void Hunters laughed too. They're not laughing anymore. High Arbiter Veltar found his voice with difficulty. How is this possible? We told you we would pursue them forever. Haewon replied. You didn't believe us. The Void Hunters didn't believe us either. But humans always keep their promises, especially promises about revenge. She picked up a data crystal and placed it on the table. This contains complete intelligence on Void Hunter fleet movements, technology specifications, and tactical weaknesses. We've been tracking them across 17 galaxies. We know where their main breeding worlds are located. We know their command structure. We know how to kill them. The chamber erupted in excited chatter as representatives realized the implications. Information about the Void Hunters was beyond priceless. It could save billions of lives and protect thousands of worlds. "Why are you giving this to us?" asked a representative from the Zephyrian Empire. "Because we don't need your help anymore," Haywan said simply. "We've learned everything we need to know. The final phase of our war against the Void Hunters is about to begin, and we don't want any interference." High Arbiter Veltar leaned forward. "What do you mean by final phase?" "We mean we're going to make the Void Hunters extinct," Haywan replied matter-of-factly. "All of them. Every last one. We've spent over a century preparing for this moment. We know where their home systems are located. We know where they reproduce. We know where their leadership hides." "That's impossible," protested another representative. "The Void Hunters have been terrorizing the galaxy for millions of years. No single species could—" "We're not the same species that you met before," Haywan interrupted. "We're what humans become when you kill our children and destroy our world. We're what happens when you mistake mercy for weakness." She stood up, preparing to leave. "Wait," called out High Arbiter Veltar. "What happens after? When the Void Hunters are gone, what will you do then?" Haywan paused at the exit. "That depends on you," she said quietly. "We remember who helped us in our darkest hour. We also remember who laughed when we asked for justice. Are you threatening the Galaxy Council?" "I'm stating a fact," Haywan replied. "Humans don't forgive. We don't forget, and we don't make the same mistake twice. The Void Hunters learned what it means to be hunted by humans. We hope you never have to learn that lesson." The transmission ended, leaving the Galaxy Council in stunned silence. Around the chamber, representatives from hundreds of species looked at each other with new understanding. The harmless primitives they had dismissed so long ago had become something terrifying. In the depths of space, the human fleets received new orders. Phase 1 of their war was complete. They had proven the Void Hunters could be defeated. Phase 2 had been the gathering of intelligence and the development of weapons. Now it was time for Phase 3, the complete extermination of their enemy. General Eugene Park gathered her fleet commanders for the final briefing. Maps of distant galaxies filled the holographic displays, showing the locations of every Void Hunter stronghold, breeding world, and command center. "Ladies and gentlemen," she said, "our ancestors made a promise in this very galaxy 130 years ago. 200 years after the fall of Earth, Supreme Commander Tae-Ho Kim stood before the largest space battle in galactic history. Through the view screen of the dreadnought Eternal Vengeance, he could see the Void Hunters' final stronghold, an ancient system at the very heart of their home galaxy, where their species had first crawled out of the cosmic dark millions of years ago. The battle had been raging for 3 weeks. Around him, the greatest armada humanity had ever assembled fought against the desperate last stand of their eternal enemy. 8,000 human ships, each one a masterpiece of war forged from centuries of hatred and refined by generations of tactical genius. "Status report," Tae-Ho ordered his second-in-command. "Admiral Hyrin Choi." "We've broken through their outer defenses," she replied, studying the tactical displays. 17 enemy planetary fortresses destroyed, 43 of their defense fleets eliminated. "But the cost has been heavy. We've lost nearly half our forces." Tae-Ho nodded grimly. He had expected this. The Void Hunters were fighting for their very existence now, using weapons and tactics they had kept hidden for millions of years. Reality itself bent around their desperate attacks, and space filled with impossible geometries that hurt to perceive directly. But humans had learned to hurt the impossible. "Signal Captain Min Ji-yoon," Tae-Ho ordered. "Tell her to begin Phase 7. Captain Min Ji-yoon commanded the Special Operations Fleet, a group of ships so advanced that even other humans found them disturbing to look at. Her vessels had been built using technology stolen not just from the Void Hunters, but from species the aliens had consumed over the millennia. Each ship was a graveyard of extinct civilizations, their final thoughts and dreams hammered into weapons of pure vengeance. "Acknowledged." "Supreme Commander," Minji replied over the communication channel, "beginning infiltration of the Void Hunter breeding worlds. Estimated time to completion, 6 hours. Those 6 hours would determine whether humanity's 2-century war would end in victory or mutual annihilation. The Void Hunters had chosen to make their final stand in the system where their species had been born, surrounded by the massive biomechanical structures where they had reproduced for eons. If those breeding worlds could be destroyed, The Void Hunter species would die with them. But the aliens were not defenseless. As Captain Minji's ships approached their targets, space itself began to fight back. The Void Hunters had turned their home system into a weapon, using technologies that existed before the current universe had cooled from the Big Bang. Hull breach on decks 7 through 12, reported Lieutenant Dalho Park from the damage control station. We're fighting enemies that shouldn't be able to exist. Then we'll kill things that shouldn't be able to exist, Minji replied calmly. All ships deploy the entropy bombs. The weapons that destroyed the first Void Hunter breeding world had been built from the compressed screams of 1 billion dead planets. They did not simply explode. They unraveled the fundamental forces that held matter together, turning everything within their blast radius into the raw quantum foam from which reality was built. The first breeding world died in silence, its destruction so complete that space itself forgot it had ever existed. The second fell to weapons that aged everything they touched until it became the dust of cosmic prehistory. The third was consumed by machines that ate probability itself, making the world both exist and not exist until it collapsed under the weight of its own impossibility. Admiral Kyung-ho, Nam commanded the fleet engaging the Void Hunters' main battle forces, while Minji's teams destroyed the breeding worlds. His ships fought with a fury that would have terrified their ancestors, using tactics that bordered on the insane. They're trying to retreat to the galactic core, reported his tactical officer. Commander Soo-Jin Lee, don't let them, Kyung-ho ordered. If even one breeding pair escapes, they could rebuild their species in 1,000,000 years. This ends today, one way or another. The human ships moved with perfect coordination, their crews linked by communication systems that operated faster than thought itself. They had learned to fight as a single organism, sharing information and reactions across the entire fleet in real time. But the Void Hunters were learning too. As their species faced extinction, they began using weapons they had never dared employ before, reality-breaking devices that had been locked away since the universe was young. Weapons that could destroy not just matter and energy, but the very concepts that allowed existence to have meaning. Sir, reported Communication Officer Ji-won Kim, we're receiving a transmission from the Void Hunter Supreme Council. They're requesting terms for surrender. Taeho felt a moment of cold satisfaction. In 2 million years of cosmic predation, the Void Hunters had never surrendered to anyone. The fact that they were doing so now proved that humanity had won. Put them through, he ordered. The view screen filled with an image that would have driven lesser species mad. The Void Hunter Supreme Council was composed of beings so old and powerful that they remembered the birth of galaxies. When they spoke, their words carried the weight of eons. We don't acknowledge defeat, the lead counselor said, its voice like the sound of entropy itself. Your species has proven superior. We offer terms. There are no terms, Taeho replied simply. There is no negotiation. There is no mercy. You destroyed our world and murdered our people. Now we destroy yours. You do not understand, the alien continued desperately. We are eternal. We are necessary. We maintain the balance between creation and destruction. Without us, the universe will survive without you, Taeho interrupted, just like it survived without the trillion species you devoured over the millennia. Your time is over. If you destroy us completely, you will become us, the Void Hunter warned. Your species has already changed beyond recognition. You build no cities, create no art, know no peace. You have become the very thing you sought to destroy. Taeho considered this for a moment. It was true that humanity had changed drastically since Earth's fall. They had become a species dedicated entirely to war. Their entire civilization focused on a single goal, extermination of their enemy. Perhaps, he admitted. But that was our choice to make. You took that choice away from 12 billion humans when you consumed our world. Now we take the choice away from you. He cut the communication and turned to his fleet commanders. All ships, final assault. Leave no survivors. Make sure their species is extinct when we're finished here. The last battle lasted 18 hours. When it ended, the Void Hunter home system was empty space filled with the slowly expanding debris of what had once been the galaxy's ultimate predators. Their ancient breeding worlds were gone. Their massive fleets were scattered atoms. Their leadership was dead, but the cost had been enormous. Of the 8,000 human ships that had begun the final assault, fewer than 2,000 remained functional. Nearly 1 million humans had died in the last battle alone, bringing the total casualties for the 2-century war to over 20 million lives. Supreme Commander Tae-ho Kim stood alone on the bridge of the Eternal Vengeance, looking out at the graveyard of his enemy. Around him, the surviving human fleet began the long process of searching for any remaining Void Hunter survivors. They would find none. Humanity had been thorough. "Sir," said Admiral Hyerin Choi, approaching cautiously. "We're receiving a transmission from the Galaxy Council. High Arbiter Veltar wants to speak with you." Tae-ho almost smiled. The same alien leader who had laughed at humanity's warning 2 centuries ago was still alive, still in power. It would be interesting to hear what he had to say now. "Put him through," Tae-ho ordered. The view screen showed an aged and clearly frightened Veltar. When he spoke, his voice carried none of the arrogant certainty it had possessed so long ago. "Supreme Commander Kim," the High Arbiter began carefully, "the Galaxy Council wishes to formally acknowledge humanity's victory over the Void Hunters. Your species has accomplished what we believed impossible." "Is that all?" Tae-ho asked. "We also want to discuss the future. With the Void Hunters extinct, there are questions about what role humanity will play in galactic affairs. Some council members are concerned about whether we'll turn our weapons on you next," Tae-ho finished. "Whether the species that exterminated the galaxy's ultimate predators might decide to solve other problems the same way." Veltar's silence was answer enough. "High Arbiter," Tae-ho said quietly. 200 years ago, a human ambassador stood before your council and asked for help. He warned you what would happen if Earth fell. You laughed at him. You dismissed his warning as the desperate boasting of a primitive species. We were wrong," Veltar admitted. "We understand that now, do you?" Tae-ho asked. "Do you really understand what happened here? This war didn't begin when the Void Hunters attacked Earth. It began when you refused to help us prevent that attack." He gestured to the debris field around them. "Every Void Hunter ship in this graveyard, every dead world they consumed after Earth, every species they exterminated over the past 2 centuries, all of that blood is on your hands as much as theirs. You could have helped us stop them before they reached our world. Instead, you chose to let us burn." Veltar said nothing. "The Void Hunters are extinct," Tae-ho continued.